Welcome back. Eskom has officially begun the search for a new CEO, saying that it's looking for someone with a postgraduate degree in engineering and at least 15 to 20 years senior management experience. The successful candidate will take over the reins from André de Ruyter, who resigned late last year. His last day in office is at the end of next month, the end of March. For more on this, we're joined by a former Eskom board member and president of the South African United Business Confederation. George Sebulela joins us via our video link this morning. George, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. It's a question that we, I think, have asked a number of times over the last 11 years. We've had 10 Eskom CEOs over that period, and that is, who is this person who is best placed, given the challenges we're facing in terms of load shedding, to take over from André de Ruyter?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I specifically want to dwell on really softer issues rather than the job spec related issues. And I want to touch on these issues carefully because, Eskom is a very complicated organization. It's a large organization. And I do believe there are four key critical behavior that the panel that is going to make a selection has to take into consideration. The first one, we need to have a CEO which will be able to decide with speed and conviction. I think that's very, very important, and I'll explain just a little bit what do I mean. Secondly, we need a CEO that will engage for impact. This is very, very critical. Thirdly, we need a CEO that will be able to adapt proactively. And last but not least, we need a CEO that will be able to deliver very reliably. That's very critical. And often we tend to rush very quickly to say, let's look at more technical aspect of the CEO without, taking into consideration those four key behaviors of a CEO of an organization such as Eskom. So let me maybe quickly summarize on what do I mean by deciding with the spirit of conviction. Firstly, mostly CEOs do not necessarily stand out to make great decisions, rather stand out to be more decisive. I think that's very critical. Good CEOs, as we know, realize that a wrong decision is much better than no decision at all. Because often CEOs are really afraid to make a decision. And the CEO of Eskom must be a high-performing CEO that understands that a wrong decision is often better than no decision at all. And we have seen it recently that the decisions in Eskom have taken very, very long in order to be implemented. And that becomes a problem. You find that the same employees and other key constituencies will quickly lose faith on that particular leadership. And
George, if you wouldn't mind me coming in there, because we don't have that much time this morning. We probably have around 4 minutes for our discussion still. And I want to get a few questions in. I want to ask you about the issues insofar as, political influence insofar as identifying the next Eskom CEO is concerned. I mean, how has that counted in previous appointments, and what should we be wary of with the new appointment now?
Bear in mind that the process of selecting a CEO is the responsibility of the board. The board will sit and through a proper, fair process of appointing the recruitment or executive search agencies. They will shortlist and recommend what they believe is the best CEO in order to lead an organization such as Eskom. They will then recommend the CEO to the minister concerned at this stage is Mr. Pravin Gordhan. Minister Pravin Gordhan who would then ratify the decision of the board. But he also has a role not to ratify on various reasons. But in a normal course, I would expect the minister, because the board has run a fair process and they have made up their mind that this is a candidate that is required to become a CEO, the minister has to ratify that particular. But often, because of the nature of South Africa, you would find that some of the ministers do not ratify, and that, I think, is where the problem starts, because then the CEO finally becomes the choice of the minister.
Right.
But that's the process. So the board is responsible to run the process and select a capable CEO. And in this particular case, in an Eskom case, we would expect a CEO that is technically astute, particularly with electrical engineering qualification, or has run a similar size of an organization locally or internationally, and has a vast experience, energy experience, in order to deal with the complications of large organizations such as Eskom.
Yeah.
And furthermore, because of the size of Eskom.
Yeah, the other important factor in that ad that was placed was also that this person who takes on this massive job also has to maintain the highest ethical and governance standards in Eskom. That will be a big task.
It's a big task, but as you know, the CEO deals with ensuring that the 7 or even more management functions are executed excellently. But he drives basically the strategy for implementation. Governance is still with the board of Eskom. And the CEO will take a mandate and will take, I would say, lack of a better way, the instruction from the board, but he would drive the strategy and implementation together with various senior executives within Eskom. And governance is the role of the chairman and his board in ensuring that Eskom comply on governance.
Yeah, a big part of the ad that was placed for this position also talks about this candidate having a successful track record managing the strategic turnaround of a commercial entity like Eskom. It's a complex environment of 20,000 employees with an annual turnover of 50 billion rand. So it's a massive job. There's no overstating that. George, let me thank you for your time this morning. George Sebulela is a former Eskom board member, in fact, and he is the president of the SA United Business Confederation.